Word of Taewoo tactical victory spread through Earth, scattered fleet like wildfire. High Command could not believe that a rejected civilian had destroyed 2 alien raiders on his first mission. Admiral Song Yoon-hee herself reviewed the battle recordings and saw something special in the young man's tactics. They promoted him to lieutenant and gave him command of his own small squadron. His new command was not impressive by normal standards: 3 ancient destroyers and 2 converted cargo vessels, all crewed by people that nobody else wanted. The other officers at fleet headquarters called them the trash squadron behind their backs. But Taewoo saw potential where others only saw problems. The destroyers were 40 years old with outdated weapons and armor that had holes patched with metal plates. Their crews were mostly factory workers and farmers who had volunteered when the regular navy was destroyed. The cargo ships had been civilian vessels before the war with basic weapons. Bolted onto their hulls, Lieutenant Bae Soo-jin commanded one of the destroyers, and she was not happy about serving under someone so young and inexperienced. She had been a cargo pilot for 15 years before the war and thought she knew more about space combat than any civilian who had studied tactics from books. The converted freighter captains were even more doubtful. Nam Ki-young had spent his whole life hauling supplies between colonies and could not understand why anyone would want to fight aliens when they could just run away. The other freighter captain, Lee Byung-ho, was scared of everything and jumped at every sound the ship made. But Taewoo did not let their doubt discourage him. He began training his crews using methods that no military academy had ever taught. Instead of standard attack formations, he showed them hit-and-run tactics inspired by ancient Earth pirates and guerrilla fighters. He made them practice hiding behind asteroids and using debris as weapons. They spent weeks in the asteroid belt learning to fight in ways that alien commanders would not expect. The old destroyers were too slow and weak to fight enemy ships directly, but they could strike fast and disappear before the aliens could respond. The converted cargo vessels looked harmless, but they could carry massive amounts of explosives. Bae Soo-jin started to change her opinion when she saw how clever Taewoos' plans were. He taught her crews to think like hunters instead of soldiers. They would track alien patrol ships for days, learning their routes and habits before setting up perfect ambushes that the enemy could not escape. Nam Ki-young discovered that his old freighter could ram alien ships and survive because it was built to carry heavy cargo in dangerous conditions. The thick hull that made it slow in normal combat became an advantage when he used it as a battering ram against surprised enemies. Their first major test came when Dominion Battle Group attacked the mining colony on Titan. The regular Earth fleet was fighting aliens near Jupiter and could not help, but Taewoos' squadron was close enough to respond. His 5 ships faced 20 alien vessels in the most important battle of his young career. He studied the situation carefully and realized that direct combat would be suicide. The aliens had better weapons, faster ships, and more experience, but they also had weaknesses that could be exploited. They were used to fighting enemies who attacked them head-on like the human fleet had always done. Taewoos split his squadron into 2 groups and sent them on different paths toward Titan. The destroyers would create a distraction while the freighters moved into position for a surprise attack. He used the moon gravity and ice rings to hide his ship movements from alien sensors. When the battle started, Bae Soo-jin led the destroyers in hit-and-run attacks that confused the alien commanders. They could not understand why the human ships would not stand and fight like brave warriors instead of running away after each strike. The aliens chased the destroyers deeper into the asteroid field where Taewoos was waiting. Nam Ki-young freighter emerged from behind a large asteroid and rammed the alien flagship at full speed. The massive cargo vessel tore through the enemy ship hull like it was made of paper, causing explosions that lit up the space around Titan. The alien commander died instantly and his fleet lost coordination. The second freighter, commanded by Lee Byung-ho, had overcome his fear enough to attack another alien ship from behind. His vessel was loaded with mining explosives that created a fireball visible from the surface of Titan. The remaining alien ships scattered, in panic, not understanding how such weak human vessels had destroyed their leaders. The battle was over in less than 2 hours. With minimal human casualties, Taewoos had saved the Titan colony and proven that unconventional tactics could defeat superior technology. The survivors spread stories about the brilliant young commander who fought like no one had ever seen before. Fleet Admiral Song Yoon-hee called Tae-woo to headquarters on Luna, where the remaining Earth government was hiding. From alien attacks, she was impressed by his results but worried about his unorthodox methods. Some of the older officers complained that he did not follow proper military procedures and was dangerous to overall fleet discipline. But the Admiral was also realistic about Earth's desperate situation. The old ways of fighting had gotten most of their fleet destroyed in the first week of war. They needed new ideas and commanders who could think beyond traditional tactics. She promoted Tae-woo to commander and gave him 15 more ships to lead. "You have proven that human creativity can overcome alien technology," she told him in her private office. "But remember that with greater command comes greater responsibility. These ships and crews are depending on you to keep them alive while striking back at our enemies." Tae-woo accepted the promotion with mixed feelings. He was proud to be recognized for his abilities, but also scared by the weight of command. 15 ships meant nearly 2,000 crew members who would live or die based on his decisions. The rejected recruit was now responsible for more lives than most generals. His expanded squadron included newer ships with better weapons, but also more traditional officers who questioned his methods. Commander Park Tae-hyun had graduated from the Naval Academy before the war and believed in textbook tactics. He did not think a former computer repair technician should be giving orders to trained military personnel, but Tae-woo had learned how to handle skeptical officers by proving himself in battle. He took his new squadron on a series of raids against alien supply lines using the same guerrilla tactics that had worked before. Each victory convinced more officers that his methods were effective even if they seemed strange. The aliens began to fear Commander Tae-woo's squadron more than larger human fleets. They called his ships the Ghost Squadron because they appeared without warning, struck hard, and vanished. Before reinforcements could arrive, alien patrol commanders started requesting transfers rather than risk facing the unpredictable human tactics. Within 6 months, Tae-woo had become one of Earth's most successful squadron commanders. His ships had destroyed over 50 alien vessels while losing only 3 of their own. The impossible had happened. The rejected recruit was now teaching the entire human fleet how to fight and win against superior enemies. His success inspired other commanders to try similar tactics, and Earth began to gain ground in the war for the first time since the surprise attack. But Tae-woo knew that bigger challenges were coming. The aliens would eventually adapt to his methods and send more powerful forces to destroy him. The young commander stood on his flagship bridge looking out at the stars and thinking about how far he had come from that rejection letter. But he also knew this was only the beginning of his journey. The war was far from over, and his greatest tests still lay ahead. 6 months after his rejection, everything changed in a single terrible morning. Tae-woo was fixing a broken tablet at the repair shop when the emergency sirens began screaming across New Seoul. The sound made his hands shake as he dropped his tools and looked up at the wall screen that Mr. Park kept on for news. The reporter looked scared as she spoke into the camera. Alien ships had appeared without warning in Earth orbit. They had somehow bypassed all the outer defense systems and caught the human fleet completely by surprise. Massive Dominion warships were attacking the lunar bases and orbital stations, while Earth defenders scrambled to respond. Tae-woo watched in horror as the news showed explosions lighting up the dark space around Earth. The flagship of Admiral Park Jin-ho erupted in a ball of fire, taking the famous commander and 3,000 crew members with it. Half of humanity, most experienced officers, died in the first hour of battle as alien weapons tore through their unprepared ships. The remaining human forces were retreating in chaos, leaving Earth almost defenseless against the alien invasion. Tae-woo felt sick watching the disaster unfold on screen. All those brave soldiers he had envied were dying up there while he sat safely in a computer shop. His rejection from military service felt even more painful now when his world needed every defender. Emergency broadcasts filled every screen and speaker across the planet. The government was calling for immediate volunteers with any kind of space or military knowledge. Even people who had been rejected before could try again. Earth had lost so many trained personnel that they would take anyone who understood how spaceships worked. Without thinking twice, Tae-woo grabbed his jacket and ran toward the nearest recruitment center. The streets were full of panicking people trying to get news about the battle or find their loved ones who served in the fleet. He pushed through the crowds with more energy than his weak lungs should have allowed. At the recruitment center, desperate officers were processing volunteers as fast as possible. Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-ji sat behind a desk covered with papers and looked exhausted from processing applications all morning. When Tae-woo handed her his old rejection form, she frowned and shook her head. "We need healthy soldiers, not people who failed the physical exam," she said tiredly. But Tae-woo did not give up. He pulled out his notebook full of tactical drawings and ship designs that he had been working on for years. He explained how he had studied every major space battle in human history and understood fleet movements better than most trained officers. Min-ji looked at his detailed drawings with growing surprise. The tactical formations were more advanced than what they taught in military academy. His analysis of weapon systems and ship weaknesses showed deep understanding of space warfare. She realized that Earth had lost so many experienced people that they could not afford to reject someone with this kind of knowledge. They assigned Tae-woo to a damaged cruiser called the Defiant. The ship was 20 years old with half its systems not working properly and holes in its armor from previous battles. Most of the original crew had died in the surprise attack, leaving only a handful of survivors to keep the vessel running. Captain Yoon Jae-sung was a former cargo pilot who had been promoted to command because all the real naval officers were dead. He looked terrified by the responsibility of leading a warship into battle against advanced alien technology. The rest of the crew were mostly civilians like Tae-woo, who had volunteered when regular soldiers were not available. Shin Hee-jin had been a mechanic at a civilian shipyard before the war started. She knew how to fix engines but had never worked on military weapons. Kang Woo-bin was a retired schoolteacher who volunteered because his son had died in the first attack. Lim Da-eun was only 17 years old, but she understood communication systems better than most adults. Nobody expected their makeshift crew to survive their first battle, but they were all Earth had left to defend this sector of space. The Defiant was assigned to patrol the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, looking for alien raiders who might attack supply convoys or mining stations. During their first week of patrol duty, everything was quiet. The crew spent time learning how to operate their ship systems, while Tae-woo studied the tactical situation. He noticed that the aliens were using hit-and-run attacks rather than trying to occupy territory. This meant they had some weakness that prevented them from staying in human space for long periods. Their first real test came when the ship sensors detected 3 alien raiders attacking a mining station in the outer belt. Captain Yoon ordered them to respond, but when they arrived at the battle site, he froze with fear. The enemy ships were sleek and deadly-looking while the Defiant was old and damaged. The alien vessels ignored the human cruiser at first, thinking it was not a threat. They continued attacking the mining station with bright energy, weapons that cut through metal like paper. The miners were sending desperate calls for help as their defenses failed one by one. Without thinking about rank or protocol, Tae-woo stepped forward and started giving orders. His voice was steady and calm as he told the weapons officer where to aim and the pilot how to maneuver. He had studied this type of situation in historical battles and knew exactly what to do. He ordered the ship to hide behind a large asteroid and wait for the perfect moment. Then they accelerated at full speed toward the nearest alien raider using the asteroid belt as cover. The enemy was caught by surprise when the old human cruiser appeared from behind the rocks and fired everything it had. The first alien ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Its destruction shocked the other 2 raiders who had not expected effective resistance from such an old vessel. Tae-woo used their confusion to position the Defiant for another attack, telling his crew exactly when to fire and where to aim. The second enemy ship tried to escape, but Tae-woo predicted its movement and ordered the pilot to intercept it. Their missiles hit the alien vessel engines, causing it to spin out of control and crash into an asteroid. The third raider finally understood the danger and fled at maximum speed back toward Dominion space. The crew of the Defiant stared at Tae-woo with amazement and new respect. In his first real battle, he had destroyed 2 advanced alien warships and saved the mining station using nothing but clever tactics and an old damaged cruiser. The miners were sending grateful messages while Captain Yoon looked at him like he was seeing a miracle. Word of their victory spread quickly through Earth scattered. Fleet High Command was desperate for any good news after the disaster of the surprise attack. A young civilian who had been rejected for military service had just proven that human intelligence could beat alien technology when used properly. Tae-woo felt something change inside him as he stood on the bridge of the Defiant looking at the wreckage of enemy ships. For the first time in his life, he had found something he was truly good at. The rejection letter in his pocket no longer seemed to matter because he had proven his worth in the only way that counted. The war was far from over and the aliens would send more ships, but Tae-woo was no longer the useless reject who could not pass a physical exam. He was a tactical genius who had just announced himself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. His real journey was just beginning. Kim Tae-woo sat in the cold metal chair and stared at the red stamp on his military papers. The words burned into his mind like fire. Rejected, unfit for service. The draft officer barely looked up from his desk as he waved Tae-woo away like he was nothing more than trash. At 22 years old, Tae-woo had everything wrong with him for military service. His eyes were so bad he needed thick glasses just to see across a room. His lungs wheezed from the sickness he had as a child, making it hard to run or do heavy work. His hands shook when he got nervous, which happened a lot when people stared at him. The medical examiner had taken one look at him and marked him as useless. Outside the recruitment center, Tae-woo watched his childhood friends march away in their new uniforms. They looked proud and strong while he stood there holding his rejection papers. Kim Min-ho had been his best friend since they were kids, but now Min-ho acted like he did not know him. The other boys from their neighborhood all got accepted into Earth Space Fleet, while Tae-woo was left behind like broken equipment. He walked home slowly through the busy streets of New Seoul. The city was full of excitement about the war. Everyone talked about how Earth was building. The biggest space fleet ever to fight the alien Dominion. Giant screens on every building showed pictures of huge spaceships and brave soldiers. The news reporters said every healthy human was needed to defend their world, but they did not want him. His small apartment felt even smaller when he got home. The walls were covered with pictures of spaceships that he had printed from the internet. He had studied every type of vessel in Earth fleet, from tiny fighters to massive battleships. He knew their weapons, their engines, and their weak points, but none of that mattered because his body was too weak to serve Lee. So young, his older sister was waiting for him in the kitchen. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital and always smelled like medicine. When she saw his face, she knew what had happened without asking. She tried to hug him, but he pulled away and went to his room. He did not want her pity right now. That night, Tae-woo lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His roommate Han Dongmin came home drunk from celebrating his acceptance into pilot training school. Dongmin stumbled around the apartment making noise and bragging about how he would fly fighter ships against the aliens. He saw Tae-woo rejection papers on the table and laughed. "Why do you even care about military stuff when you could not pass a simple physical exam?" Dongmin said while pointing at the spaceship pictures on the wall. "You should focus on something you can actually do, like fixing computers or cleaning offices. Stop dreaming about things that will never happen." But Tae-woo could not stop dreaming. He had been reading about famous battles and great commanders since he was a little boy. He knew the story of every major war in human history, from ancient times to modern space conflicts. At night, he would study old military tactics and imagine himself leading fleets of starships across the galaxy. His mind was sharp, even if his body was weak. The next morning, he went to work at Mr. Park, computer repair shop. The old man was kind to him and paid him enough money to survive, but the job was boring. He spent his days replacing broken screens and fixing damaged circuits, while his mind wandered to thoughts of space battles. Most customers treated him like he was invisible. Just another young person working a dead-end job during his lunch break. Tae-woo always watched the military news broadcasts on his phone. Admiral Park Jin-ho gave speeches about human courage and the need to protect Earth from alien invasion. The admiral was everything Tae-woo wanted to be. Tall, strong, confident, and respected. He commanded thousands of ships and millions of soldiers, while Tae-woo could not even get past the medical exam. Every day brought new reports about the alien Dominion. The enemy had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved entire species. Their technology was far more advanced than anything humans possessed. But Earth military leaders said human spirit and determination would win. The war Tae-woo believed this was true, But he felt useless sitting on the sidelines. Weeks passed and the rejection still burned in his chest. His sister tried to cheer him up by saying he could contribute in other ways. Maybe he could work in a factory building ships or join a support unit that did not require combat training. But Tae-woo did not want to be support. He wanted to command. He wanted to prove that intelligence could be more powerful than physical strength. One evening, while walking home from work, he saw a group of new soldiers saying goodbye to their families at the train station. They were heading to the lunar training bases where they would learn to fight in space. The young men looked nervous but excited about their adventure. Tae-woo felt a sharp pain in his chest watching them leave. He should have been with them. His sister found him that night sitting at his desk drawing battle formations on paper. She sat down beside him and asked what he was working on. He showed her his drawings of how small fast ships could defeat larger enemies by using smart tactics instead of brute force. She looked at his work with surprise because it was much more complex than she expected. "You have a good mind for this kind of thinking," she said softly. "Maybe the military made a mistake by only looking at your body instead of your brain." Tae-woo wanted to believe her, but the red stamp on his papers said otherwise. The system had decided he was worthless. And there seemed to be no way to change that. As winter turned to spring, the news grew more serious. Alien scout ships had been spotted at the edge of the solar system. Earth fleet was preparing for the first real battles of the war. Recruitment centers stayed busy as more young people volunteered to serve. Tae-woo applied again, hoping someone would give him a chance, but they rejected him even faster the second time. He began to think his dreams of serving Earth were impossible. His weak body would always hold him back no matter how much his mind understood warfare. The other people his age were training with weapons and learning to pilot ships while he fixed broken computers and lived with the shame of being unwanted. The future looked dark and empty. But sometimes the universe has different plans than what appears on official paperwork. Sometimes the qualities that make someone appear useless in peacetime become exactly what is needed when everything goes wrong. Sometimes the person everyone overlooks becomes the most important of all. Tae-woo did not know it yet, but his real test was coming very soon. As commander, Tae-woo led his battle group of 30 ships. His reputation spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every victory against the alien dominion made him more famous, but also attracted more dangerous enemies. The aliens were no longer sending small patrol groups against him. They wanted him dead, and were prepared to send their best commanders to make it happen. War. Prince Vextar was the most feared military leader in the Dominion Empire. He had conquered 12 worlds and enslaved entire species without ever losing a major battle. His fleet of 200 advanced warships had crushed every rebellion and resistance movement they encountered. The alien prince was cruel, intelligent, and absolutely determined to destroy the human who kept disrupting Dominion plans. High Command received intelligence reports about Vextar preparation for a massive attack near Jupiter. The alien prince was bringing technology that Earth forces had never seen before, including ships that could cloak themselves and weapons that could destroy entire moons. His goal was simple: eliminate Commander Tae-woo and show the galaxy that humans could not defeat. Dominion superiority. Tae-woo studied every piece of information about his new enemy, and felt both fear and excitement. He was facing an opponent who had 300 years of experience commanding fleets, while he had been in combat for less than 2 years. The odds were impossible, but something inside him welcomed the challenge. The decisive battle location was chosen carefully. Vextar wanted to protect a vital supply convoy heading from Jupiter to the outer colonies. The route took them through the complex moon system of the gas giant, where asteroid fields and radiation zones created natural obstacles. Tae-woo realized this could work to his advantage if he planned everything perfectly. He spent weeks preparing his battle group for the most important fight of the war. His 30 ships were outnumbered 6-1, facing technology far superior to anything Earth possessed. Traditional space combat tactics would result in complete defeat within hours, but Tae-woo had never used traditional tactics. Working with his most trusted captains, he developed a battle plan that seemed impossible to execute. Bae Soo-jin now commanded a destroyer squadron and understood his thinking better than anyone. Nam Ki-young had become expert at using converted civilian ships as surprise weapons. Captain Ryu Hei-wan led the newest ships with the best weapons. The plan required splitting his fleet into 7 small groups and hiding them throughout Jupiter moon system. Each group would be stationed near a different moon using the natural gravity and radiation to mask their presence from alien sensors. The entire battlefield would become a maze of traps and ambushes. When Vextar's massive fleet arrived in the Jupiter system, he expected to find human ships waiting in defensive formation. Instead, his sensors showed empty space with only the supply convoy moving slowly toward its destination. The alien prince was suspicious, but also confident that no human commander would dare challenge his superior forces. Tae-woo watched from his hidden position behind Europa. As the alien fleet moved into his trap, the enemy ships were beautiful and deadly-looking with weapons that could destroy asteroids with single shots. Their formation was perfect textbook military precision that would have impressed any academy instructor, but perfection could also be a weakness because it made enemy movements predictable. Tae-woo had studied Vextar's previous battles and knew exactly how the alien prince liked to deploy his forces. The war prince always used the same tactics, because they had always worked before. The first phase of the battle began when Bae Soo-jin destroyer squadron attacked the alien rear guard from behind Ganymede. Her ships appeared without warning, launched their missiles, and disappeared back into the moon shadow before the aliens could respond. Vextar was annoyed by the small attack but not concerned. The second attack came from Nam Ki-young, converted freighters hiding in the asteroid belt between Io and Europa. They used mining charges to create artificial meteor showers that pelted the alien ships with high-speed rocks. The damage was minor, but it forced the enemy fleet to change course, as the alien formation shifted to avoid the asteroid bombardment. Tae-woo sprung his main. Trap Captain Ryu Hei-wan led the heavy cruisers in a coordinated strike against the alien left flank, while 2 more squadrons hit them from above and below. The Jupiter radiation interfered with alien communications, making it hard for them to coordinate their response. Vextar realized he was facing something completely different from any human commander he had studied. The enemy ships were not fighting like a proper fleet, but like a pack of hunters working together to bring down larger prey. Each attack was precisely timed to take advantage of his fleet movements. The battle lasted 18 hours with human forces striking and retreating like ghosts. Tae-woo used Jupiter's massive gravity field to slingshot his ships at incredible speeds, making them impossible to track or target. His forces seemed to be everywhere at once, appearing behind moons, launching devastating attacks, and vanishing before retaliation. The alien prince grew increasingly frustrated as his superior technology failed to provide decisive advantage. His ships were faster and more powerful, but they could not fight enemies they could not find. The humans were using the entire Jupiter system as their weapon, turning every moon and asteroid into a potential threat. In the final phase, Tae-woo revealed his masterstroke. While his decoy forces kept the main alien fleet busy chasing shadows around the outer moons, he led his best ships in a direct assault on Vextar's flagship. The alien prince could not believe that humans would dare such a bold attack against his personal command vessel. The war prince had made the same mistake as many commanders before him. He had underestimated human unpredictability. His flagship was powerful enough to destroy any single human ship, but it was not prepared for a coordinated assault by 12 vessels attacking from different angles at the same time. Tae-woo personally led the final attack. His damaged cruiser racing toward the alien flagship at maximum speed. Enemy weapons fire lit up space around him, but his pilot managed to avoid the worst hits. His ship weapons were not powerful enough to penetrate alien armor, but he was not trying to destroy the enemy vessel. Instead, he targeted the flagship, communication arrays, and sensor systems. His precise strikes blinded and deafened the alien command ship, leaving Vextar unable to coordinate his fleet. The other human ships followed his example, attacking the alien weak points instead of trying to break through heavy armor. The war prince died when his flagship exploded in a brilliant ball of fire that lit up the entire Jupiter system. His death threw the remaining Dominion forces into confusion without their commander. The alien ships scattered and fled back toward their home territory. The greatest victory in human history was complete. Earth celebrated for days when news of the victory reached home. Tae-woo had defeated the most feared alien commander in the galaxy, using nothing But clever tactics and brave crews, the impossible had happened again. The rejected recruit had saved humanity from its greatest threat. But Taewoo knew this was only one battle in a longer war. The Dominion Empire was vast, and they would send other commanders to replace Vextar. Standing on his flagship bridge surrounded by cheering crew members, he looked out at the stars and wondered what challenges would come next. The young commander who had started as a failure was now the most famous military leader in human space. His name would be remembered forever, but the weight of that fame was heavier than any medal. The galaxy was watching him and expecting miracles, but he was still just a person trying to do his best. His greatest test had been passed, but even greater challenges lay ahead. The war was far from over, and the aliens would not make the same mistakes twice. Taewoo would need to become even better, even smarter, and even more creative to keep Earth safe from the dangers that were coming. The Dominion Emperor Zarthok had ruled his empire for over 500 years and conquered thousands of worlds. But he had never faced an enemy like Admiral Taewoo. The human victories were inspiring rebellions across the galaxy and threatening the foundation of Dominion power. The Emperor decided that Earth must be destroyed completely before other species got ideas about freedom. He assembled the largest fleet in Dominion history, over 1,000 ships led by War Master Thexgol, the supreme military commander who had ruled the Empire armies for 3 centuries. This ancient alien had crushed every rebellion and conquest with ruthless efficiency. He commanded half of the Dominion total military power, with orders to eliminate Earth and end human resistance forever. The massive alien armada began its journey toward the Sol system, carrying enough firepower to crack planets and boil oceans. Every ship was crewed by the most experienced warriors in the Empire, using technology that had conquered countless civilizations. The Emperor himself traveled with the fleet to witness humanity final destruction. Earth intelligence networks detected the approaching threat months before arrival. Admiral Taewoo called emergency meetings with every human fleet commander as they prepared for the ultimate battle that would decide the fate of their species. Every available ship converged on the Sol system for humanity. Last stand. Admiral Chen Wei-Ming brought his second fleet from the outer colonies, while Admiral Sarah Mitchell arrived with the battered remains of the First Fleet merchant vessels, were converted to carry weapons, and civilian pilots volunteered to fly fighter craft. Even children helped by manning communication stations and supply depots. The combined human fleet numbered only 400 ships, facing an enemy force that outnumbered them more than 2 to 1. The alien vessels were also individually superior, with better weapons, stronger shields, and more experienced crews. Traditional military analysis suggested that Earth had no chance of survival. Other fleet commanders wanted to make a defensive stand near Earth, using the planet orbital fortresses and lunar bases to provide support fire. But Admiral Taewoo proposed something much more dangerous. He suggested taking the entire human fleet to meet the aliens at the edge of the solar system. His plan seemed like suicide to the other admirals, but Taewoo had spent months studying solar physics, with scientist Dr. An Soo-jin learning secrets about their star that could be turned into weapons. The sun itself would become part of their battle strategy if they had the courage to attempt something never tried before. Working with Dr. An, the Admiral developed a plan to trigger controlled solar flares using carefully placed nuclear charges. The massive energy storms would disrupt alien sensors and communications, while human ships specially shielded for the operation could continue fighting effectively. It was incredibly dangerous, but offered their only hope. The preparation took weeks as human ships were fitted with experimental shielding and their crews trained for combat in solar radiation environments. The modifications weakened their weapons and defenses, but Admiral Taewoo believed surprise would compensate for reduced firepower. When War Master Thexagol's massive fleet entered the outer solar system, he expected to find desperate human forces hiding behind their planet defenses. Instead, his scouts reported that the entire Earth fleet was advancing to meet him in open space. The ancient alien commander was puzzled by such apparent stupidity. The War Master had studied every human battle and believed he understood their tactics. They used cunning and trickery to compensate for inferior technology, but they had never faced odds this impossible or an enemy this experienced. He deployed his forces in classic formation, confident that superior numbers would overwhelm any human strategy. Admiral Tae-woo watched the alien deployment from his command bridge and felt both fear and excitement. This was the moment everything had been building toward since his rejection from military service 3 years ago. The fate of human civilization rested on a plan that could destroy his own fleet. If it failed, as the two armadas approached each other, the human fleet began its most dangerous maneuver. Ships carrying nuclear charges broke away from the main formation and raced toward the sun at maximum speed. Their mission was to place explosives at precise points on the solar surface to create the energy storm that would blind the alien fleet. War Master Thexgol watched this movement with ancient amusement. The humans were dividing their forces when they should be concentrating them for maximum effect. He ordered his fastest ships to intercept the human vessels before they could complete whatever foolish plan they were attempting. The battle began when alien interceptors caught the human bomb ships near Mercury. Several vessels were destroyed, but enough survived to complete their mission. The nuclear charges detonated simultaneously at calculated points on the sun surface, creating a massive coronal mass ejection that raced outward at incredible speed. Within minutes, the solar storm reached the battle area, filling space with charged particles and electromagnetic interference that turned the most advanced alien sensors into useless junk. The Dominion fleet found itself flying blind while their communication systems failed and their targeting computers went offline. But the human ships continued operating normally because Admiral Tae-woo had prepared them for exactly these conditions. His crews had trained for months to fight in solar storms, while the aliens had never experienced anything like this chaotic environment. They stumbled around like giants trying to swat flies in the dark. In the confusion of the solar storm, Admiral Tae-woo Third Fleet struck with perfect coordination. Every human captain knew exactly where to be and what to do, while their enemies flailed helplessly in the electromagnetic chaos. The carefully planned attacks hit alien ships that could not defend themselves or call for help. Captain Bae Soo-jin led her striker squadron in devastating attacks against the alien command vessels. Her ships appeared out of the solar storm like vengeful spirits, destroyed their targets, and vanished back into the electromagnetic chaos before the enemy could respond. The alien fleet began losing coordination as their leaders died. Captain Ryu Hai-wan heavy cruisers targeted the largest alien battleships using their specialized armor-piercing weapons to punch through enemy shields weakened by the solar radiation. The massive Dominion vessels that had terrorized countless worlds burned like torches in the radioactive storm. War Master Thexgol realized too late that he had been outmaneuvered by an enemy he had dismissed as a primitive species. The humans had turned their own star into a weapon and created battlefield conditions that negated every Dominion advantage. His ancient pride had blinded him to the possibility of such impossible tactics. The battle raged for 6 hours as the solar storm gradually weakened, but by then the damage was done. Half the alien fleet was destroyed or disabled, while human losses were surprisingly light. The survivors of the mighty Dominion Armada began retreating toward the outer system in complete disorder. Admiral Tae-woo ordered the pursuit as human ships chased the fleeing aliens past the orbit of Neptune. The retreating enemy vessels were caught between pursuing human forces and the lingering effects of the solar storm. Many more alien ships were destroyed as they tried to escape the system. When the last enemy vessel jumped to hyperspace, the greatest battle in human history was finally over. The Dominion Empire had been broken, and their invasion fleet destroyed. News of the victory spread across the galaxy, inspiring enslaved species everywhere to rise up against their alien oppressors. Standing on his flagship bridge, Admiral Tae-woo looked out at the wreckage scattered throughout the solar system and felt a mixture of. Following his triumph over War Prince Vextar at Jupiter Fleet, Admiral Song Yun-hee made a decision that shocked the entire military command. She promoted Commander Tae-woo to full admiral and gave him control of the entire Third Fleet. At 24 years old, he became the youngest fleet commander in human history, responsible for over 300 ships and 50,000 crew members. Many senior officers were angry about his rapid promotion. Captain Yang Dae-ho had served in the Navy for 30 years and believed rank should come from experience, not battlefield luck. Commander Lee Jin-wook thought it was dangerous to give so much power to someone who had never attended military academy. Several admirals requested transfers, rather, than serve under such a young leader. But Fleet Admiral Song knew something the others did not understand. Earth was losing the war despite recent victories. The Dominion Empire had thousands of worlds and millions of ships, while humanity had only one planet and a few hundred vessels. Traditional military thinking would never be enough to overcome such impossible odds. She gave Admiral Tae Woo unlimited resources to build the most powerful fighting force humanity had ever assembled. New shipyards, worked around the clock producing vessels designed according to his specifications. Scientists and engineers competed to develop weapons that would give human forces every possible advantage. Tae Woo revolutionized every aspect of naval warfare, starting with the ships themselves. Working with Chief Engineer Dr. Hwang Ji-woo, he created vessels that could separate into multiple parts during battle, making them harder to target and more flexible in combat. The modular design meant damaged sections could be jettisoned while the rest of the ship continued fighting. His new destroyers looked nothing like traditional warships. Instead of one large hull, they consisted of 3 smaller sections connected by reinforced docking tubes. During combat, the sections could separate and attack from different angles before reconnecting for repairs and resupply. The aliens had never seen anything like this adaptive technology. The cruisers were even more revolutionary. They carried swarms of small drone fighters that could be controlled by a single human pilot using neural interface technology. The drones moved too fast for alien gunners to track and could coordinate attacks that overwhelmed enemy defense systems. Training programs changed completely under Admiral Tae Woo leadership. Instead of teaching rigid obedience to orders, he encouraged individual initiative and creative thinking. Every crew member learned multiple jobs so they could adapt when battle damage or casualties created new situations. His sailors became problem solvers rather than just order followers. Captain Bae Soo-jin now commanded his elite striker squadron and had learned to think like her admiral. She trained her crews to use everything from asteroid bombardments to fake surrender signals, always finding new ways to surprise and confuse enemies. Her ships became famous for appearing in impossible places and striking at perfect moments. Communications Officer Park Ji-yeon developed new methods for coordinating attacks across vast distances using quantum entanglement technology. The entire Third Fleet could work like a single organism, with every ship knowing instantly what the others were doing. This gave them enormous advantages in complex battles. The fleet became famous throughout the galaxy for its unconventional tactics and devastating effectiveness. They used psychological warfare, broadcasting fake distress calls to lure alien ships into traps. They employed captured alien technology, turning enemy weapons against their former owners. They even used gravity bombs that could create artificial black holes. Veteran Captain Ryu Hae-won, who had once mocked Tae Woo methods, now led his most elite squadron. The captain had learned that unconventional thinking produced extraordinary results. His heavy cruisers became specialists at destroying alien space stations and orbital fortresses, using tactics that seemed impossible until they worked. The Dominion Empire began to fear Admiral Tae Woo Third Fleet more than any other human force. Their intelligence reports called him the Ghost Admiral because his ships appeared and disappeared without warning, striking at targets that should have been impossible to reach. Alien commanders requested transfers rather than face him in battle. His success inspired other human fleets to adopt similar tactics. Admiral Chen Wei-ming of the Second Fleet began using hit-and-run attacks instead of direct confrontation. Admiral Sarah Mitchell started training her crews in unconventional warfare. The innovation spread throughout Earth military, as other leaders learned from his example. The war began to turn in humanity's favor as alien forces found themselves fighting enemies they could not predict or understand. Human ships were weaker individually, but they fought with creativity and teamwork that the Dominion could not match. Every battle became a lesson in how intelligence could overcome superior technology. Admiral Tae Woo stood in the command center of his flagship, the Indomitable, watching tactical displays that showed the positions of his entire fleet. 300 ships spread across multiple star systems, all working together to protect Earth and its colonies. The rejected recruit now commanded more firepower than most alien empires, but the responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. Every decision he made affected thousands of lives and the future of human civilization. The young man who had once been labeled useless now carried the hopes of an entire species. His crew looked at him with respect and trust that sometimes felt overwhelming. Dr. Huang Jiwu worked constantly to develop new technologies that would give the Third Fleet even greater advantages. They created stealth systems that made ships invisible to alien sensors, shield generators that could deflect the most powerful enemy weapons engines that allowed faster-than-light travel without using traditional jump gates. The engineering teams competed to build better weapons and defenses, particle beam cannons that could cut through alien armor like paper magnetic mines that could be hidden in asteroid fields, electronic warfare systems that could hack alien computer networks and turn their own ships against them. Morale throughout the fleet was higher than anyone had seen since before the war began. Sailors who had once been terrified of alien technology now looked forward to battle knowing their admiral would find ways to win against impossible odds. The Third Fleet had become a symbol of human determination and ingenuity. Other alien species that were enslaved by the Dominion began to hear stories about the Ghost Admiral and his impossible victories. Some started their own rebellions hoping that humans would come to help them break free from Dominion control. The war was becoming larger than just Earth survival, but Admiral Taewu knew that his greatest challenges still lay ahead. The Dominion Emperor was growing desperate as human forces won more battles and inspired more rebellions. Soon they would send their most powerful fleets to crush Earth once and for all. The final test of his leadership was approaching. Standing on the bridge of his flagship surrounded by the crew that had followed him from his first battle, he looked out at the stars and thought about how far they had all come together. The Third Fleet was ready for whatever came next, but the young admiral wondered if he was truly prepared for the ultimate confrontation that would decide the fate of human civilization.